We're here with my sister from another mister, my fellow reading aficionado, who I think is the only person I know that reads more books than I do. Margy Feldhuhn, welcome to the show. It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
I love it. It's so funny. If you're listening to this, I want you to get a visual. I was sitting at my desk and I had just logged into Zoom to record this session. And my little dapple dachshund Faith wanted up. And then the next thing you know, Sunshine, my little red wire-haired, wanted up. And I had these two dogs vying for my attention. And all I could think of is, oh my gosh, Margy, hurry up, because you're going to love this. And sure enough, she chimed in at the perfect time to see my two dogs and a big love fest on my computer screen. So I know you are a big fur mom too.
Yes, it was a perfect way to start the call. The only thing I love more than books is animals.
I know. And so I watch pictures of your dogs all the time. What is the Instagram handle? Mitts and Hughes, or what is it?
Mitt and Muse.
Mitt and Muse. Yes. And I love Pasco. Like, I am sorry, he's my favorite. Like, you can't not love a dog who can't keep his tongue in his mouth, right? Like, he is just such a diva. And every picture I see, I just want him. He's adorable.
He's my favorite too. He has a lot more sass than Muesli, the other dog, but I don't feel bad because like Pasco's more my favorite. And then Muesli, our Shih Tzu, is obsessed with my wife. And so they like have their own thing. So we each have our own like favorite dog.
What about the cat?
The cat, we both just love cats. So one of our cats is my wife's cat. So we also have favorites with the cats because one cat I've had for 20 years.
You have two?
Yes, we have two cats. We had both our cats that we had before we were married. Now both live with us.
And how do the cats like that?
They're good. I mean, my cat is so old that she is very laid back. She doesn't really care. And so they get along surprisingly well. It's very peaceful with them and the dogs.
That's awesome. So I have a question for you. You and I were texting a few months ago, and you told me that you were walking for 2 hours every morning. Are you still doing that?
I am now doing that every other day because I started going to fitness classes at this place in my neighborhood that I've gotten very obsessed with. Legree, which is like Pilates on steroids, basically on a big like megaformer machine. So, but I am still doing my walk on alternating days for 2 hours because I love it. I love getting outside and listening to my audiobooks, but I'm not doing it every day, which I miss it, but also it's winter in Rhode Island. So it has been nice to switch it up with some indoor working out.
Yeah, I have been. So I don't know if you know this, but we recently sold our home in Naples and moved to Ormond Beach. And we're living in a new community in Ormond Beach, and it's a fantastic walking community. So most mornings now I'm walking 5 to 6K in the morning, which is really nice. But I don't listen to an audiobook when I walk. So sometimes I like just the quiet of walking alone with my own thoughts. But you like to listen to books when you walk, don't you?
Yes, I am obsessed with listening to books. I like almost never listen to music. I almost never listen to podcasts. There's something about audiobooks that I love when I walk. Although they do say it's very good to just walk and listen to nothing and like have that thinking time. So I think there's definitely something to be said for that.
Yeah, I think there's a balance. I'm curious, do you listen to books on regular speed or do you like speed them up?
That's a good question. I listen to them on regular speed because and sometimes I'll listen to the same book multiple times. So for the most part, I like to savor them. The one exception would be occasionally there'll be a book that it's not a book I would have chosen, but I need to read it for the business because for some reason I just need to like absorb the information. And so I may listen to that a little bit sped up, but for the most part, not only do I listen to them at regular speed, but like I'll like rewind because sometimes I'll find like my mind wandering while I'm walking and I'm like, oop, I just missed something. And then I'll rewind and re-listen to it.
That's funny. See, for me, it depends on the author. If the author speaks really slowly, I have to speed it up or I can't pay attention. It's like, it's got to go fast. It's got to go at speed of Lisa or I'm out. So
yeah.
I'm always curious about that. So As you know, this season is all about reading and learning. And I'd love to just kind of pick your brain a little bit about why are you obsessed with reading?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I mean, I think it is a love of learning and really, and I love reading fiction too, which is not what we're talking about, but my love of reading started like as a kid with fiction, and I still love fiction. I don't read as much fiction as I'd like to. And I don't listen to fiction on audio, but I just have always loved to read. And then when I became a business owner, and even a little bit before that, I started getting into nonfiction because I started getting into like personal development books and personal growth. And I just find it incredible how much a book can totally change your perspective and your life in such a lasting way, which is crazy when you think about it. Because what is it, like $10? And it, for me, I really have had books that I implemented, whether that was through action or just through a mindset shift, that totally changed me.
Yeah. You made me think of something when you said $10. Have you read Greatness yet?
No.
So go to greatnessthebook.com. It's $100 book and it's 100 pages. And a client of mine told me about it, and he said, buy it, read it, and if you don't like it, I'll give you your money back. It is an outstanding book. You will love it. I would have that
Oh.
book in thought readers in a second, but I know that most people probably won't spend $100 on a book. And you will be impressed with the sales page because the author speaks to that. We'll spend $100 on a bottle of wine. We'll spend $100 on a good meal, but few people will invest $100 in a book that is only 100 pages long to learn.
I love that. All right. I
Yeah,
will definitely check it
I know you're
out.
going to buy it. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit about how reading has impacted your professional life. As you know, I ask everyone to come with 3 books that have really made an impact on their lives. So, maybe one of those 3 books is one that you could talk about. But I'm curious, for me, people always say things to me like, I don't have time to read. I don't have time to implement what I learned from books. And so, I'm always curious about people who love reading. What is an example of how a book has made an impact, like a change in your professional life?
Yes. So in Thought Readers with you, we read Scrum, how to do twice the work in half the time. And I didn't want to read it because I thought it was just going to be a general productivity book. And you were like, I really think that you should read this one. And I'm so glad you said that because, and this is an extreme example because like, I don't implement every book to this extent. That would be wild, right? Like, because focus is important and you can't just switch directions every time you read a new book. So sometimes I'll implement a book and it will be sort of a subtle implementation, right? Like I will just take it in and it will help me be a better leader. But this was a book that led to the most intense restructuring and just like total sharp right turn ever in the business. So I read about Scrum and I was fascinated by this way of working and this way of teams working together. And because I don't come out of a software or tech or product business background, I had never heard of this. I mean, like anybody coming out of tech is like, oh yeah, duh, Scrum.
Yeah, Scrum or Waterfall, they know what it is.
Yes, but I've never done project management. I've never done software. So I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And so I became really fascinated with what that would look like to implement in my business, which couldn't be further from a software company, right? We're a done for you podcast booking agency. We book entrepreneurs on podcasts. So different, right? We don't really have a product, it's a service. And so I became obsessed though with how to take this Scrum agility and how to implement it in a service-based business. And that reading that book took me on, it's been over a year now. I hired a consultant. I totally pulled apart and restructured our entire company, got rid of the different departments and created cross-functional teams that had people from each department that could serve clients from start to finish. I got certified. I got a certification as a Scrum Master. I got a certification as a product owner. I got certified as an Agile facilitator.
Holy cow.
I paid to have the leaders on my team certified. I had one leader certified both as a product owner and as a Scrum Master, even though he's acting as product owner. I had our Scrum Master certified as a Scrum Master. And so it was the book was like the tip of the iceberg, but it explained it in such a powerful way that it was enough information to know that like, this is the direction that we need to go in. And that started this incredible journey.
So how did you, I'm curious about this because when I read Scrum, I was like, oh, I have some ideas for my business too. But, we tried some stuff and it, we maybe some of it worked and some of it fizzled and fell flat. So I wouldn't say we have adopted it, maybe 5%, whereas you've gone all in. So talk to us about why you chose to go all in, why you chose to then go invest in a consultant and invest in additional learning and certification for you and team members, and how has it helped your business?
Yeah, well, there's a couple reasons. Part of it was like, it was just, and I feel like this is probably a theme in these interviews, it was the right book at the right time. And the timing of when you read a book is everything. And I've even come back to books that I read, and I was like, and then I read them in a different time in my life. And I'm like, this is amazing. So Scrum was speaking to a lot of the pain points that I was experiencing as a 7-figure entrepreneur with a team of 20 full-time employees. I was experiencing the problems that happen from having a team that's not agile. And so the more that I read the book, it just intuitively felt so clear that this was the next step for us. And it addressed so many problems that as a CEO, I had been trying to solve as we scaled this fairly large for us team. So that was a big part of it. And there was just this strong intuition. Like I knew that the way that we had the team structured, we weren't able to get to where I wanted to go in terms of performance, in terms of productivity, in terms of profitability. And when I read about there being this other solution that allowed teams to get so much more done in less time by working together in better ways, I just knew that this was it. And I think there are also certain things that I think with some books, you can just like take a couple things and use them and it's helpful. With things like Scrum, and I kind of felt this way, and the more I've learned, the more I feel like this is true. It's very hard to just take pieces of it and have it work because it works as a framework. It's a light framework, but you really, in my opinion, you need to go like all in or not do it. And so we went very all in.
Interesting. I love that. You're making me want to revisit the book, as I think about my own business and think about what we did, and maybe we didn't look at it as closely or as seriously as we should have. I'm always looking for ways to improve our processes and improve productivity and improve profit. I find that, there's a lot, there's certain things that you don't need to know to get to 7 figures. But once you surpass 7 figures, if you keep thinking the way you did to get there, you don't actually scale the way you could. And so I hear what you're saying. You've heard of the rule of 3 and 10?
Mm.
So the rule of 3 and 10 is every time you triple something, it breaks. So when you're a one-person show, it's easy because it's just you know everything. And when you become 3, it's fairly easy. You have still you and 2 other people. So it's pretty easy to communicate. But as soon as you get to 10, you've tripled the size. Now you need some, a couple leaders, right? Because you can't talk to 10 people every week. It's going to be really hard. And then you go from 10 to 30 and everything breaks yet again. I find these breakage points happen not only in the size of your team, but in the size of your business. So you go from 100,000 to 300,000 to a million. There's a lot that you do differently. You go from a million to 3 million. There's a lot that has to happen differently to get from 1 to 3 million, and then to get from 3 to 10. And so I think about what you're doing with Scrum, and I think about, if you're listening and you're thinking about, how do I get to that next level? If it feels out of reach and you're doing the same thing over and over again, which is the definition of insanity, if you're not getting a different result, reading books can really help you consider a different way of doing what you do.
Yeah. And it's so funny that you would say that, because at the point where I read Scrum, we had gone from 1 million to 3 million. And then we're looking at how to get to 10. And it's exactly what you said. Like, we just couldn't keep scaling what we had gotten to this point. You just can't do it. And one of the things I learned from this deep dive is agility is an umbrella. And so Scrum is just one framework under agility, but it's not the only one. So I think for a business like yours, and probably some people listening, it's actually worth looking into Kanban, which is another type of agility. And it doesn't require what Scrum requires in terms of like having a product owner and a Scrum master and all of this stuff. But it is agile and it's really powerful. And I think a lot of businesses, and yours included, from deep diving into just Kanban, I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, I actually bought the Kanban book that they talk about in Scrum, but I haven't read it. I love the whole idea of the Kanban board, what has to happen, doing, done, like the movement of the parts. I think it makes a lot of sense. And we've implemented some of that in Asana. But anyone who knows me knows that I have a love-hate relationship with Asana. I don't know if I'm just getting old and using new tools and systems is proving to not be as easy for me. I actually said to Cassie on my team today, sometimes I think things would just be easier if we had a simple Word document with what people needed to do written on it. And I could just like hear myself as, oh my God, rah, 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 you sound like an old person who's not embracing technology.
Yeah. But I mean, I think it's like a good point though, because the tech that we use, just like the frameworks that we use, should be light, right? It shouldn't be a ton of extra time and bandwidth just to make them work. They should be in service of what we're doing, not slowing it down. So I think from that perspective, what you're saying makes sense. And that's a smart thing to always be paying attention to is documentation and systems actually slowing us down from doing good work?
Right. Right. And that's my point. Sometimes if it takes you as long to read the task as it does to do the work, then we're slowing people down. We're not making it easy for them to be agile. And so I love what you've said about agile is really the umbrella. If you're trying to create an agile business, you need to understand what systems or what frameworks make it easy for your people to do the work that they need to do, and what makes it easy for your customers to work with you. It's not even just about your team members. It's also about your customers. I've heard people say things before, oh, so-and-so, they're putting things in the wrong places in Asana. And it makes me think, okay, are they? Or is it that the way we've created this playground is difficult to navigate? And as soon as you have friction or difficulty in navigating and finding things, then I feel like you create more work because you create friction to getting to what you need with ease. And so if you're listening, eliminate friction, make it easy to get to what you need for yourself and your customers. So I am not a big audiobook reader. If I listen to an audiobook, it's typically when I'm in my car driving, or it's when I'm falling asleep at night. So I listen to Spare on audiobook because, it's a memoir and I don't need to write anything down. It's not going to keep my little brain awake at night. It's going to help me fall asleep. And yes, I rewound back 2 chapters every night because I knew I missed stuff and fell asleep listening to, Prince Harry's lovely voice talk to me. The reason that I'm not an audiobook person is because I like to mark up my books. So I write in my books, I put flags in my books, I highlight things. Talk to me about any tips you have for how you read a book for maximum impact, especially if it's audio and you're out walking.
Yes, that's such a great question. I mean, tactically, the answer is sometimes I will stop and write things in a note on my phone, but I also think this really illuminates something that is important, which is that I think that everybody gets value from things differently. And I hate taking notes. I will never revisit my notes. I don't know why, but like highlighting and note taking, I will take notes for things just knowing that, not on books, but like when I'm learning or if I'm in a class or a certification, I'll take notes because I understand that my brain will absorb better if I do some writing. But like you could not pay me to revisit my own notes. And like, I don't even know if they would make sense if I did. So for me, I think I learned by listening and reflecting on things. Sometimes I will write some key things down in a note on my phone and then talking about them to like whoever, right? Like I'll talk to my business partner, I'll talk to the team, I'll talk to a friend. So I get really like engrossed in things and concepts and ideas. And then I just start talking about them a lot because I'm thinking about them a lot. And I find that works really well for me to just like continue to evolve and like kind of hold on to the information.
I love that. I love that. I can relate to that because when I'm listening to a speaker, I'm often intently listening and not taking notes because I really want to hear and absorb what they're saying. And if you're writing while someone's speaking, you're not listening. Can't
Yeah.
do those two things at the same time. So talk to us about the other two books that have been powerful for you, because one of them I've read and one of them I've half read. And the one that I half read, I kind of stalled out on. So I'm curious because it's one of your top three as to these two other books and why they were so impactful for you. So please share what they are and why.
Yes. So first, I just want to say, like, my top three books change depending on the day that you ask me, because I do read a lot and there'll be times where I'll be thinking about a certain book I've read a lot more than others, depending on what's going on. Although The Power of Now, which is one of the ones of my top three that I gave you, pretty consistently, if someone asked me like what book changed your life, it would be that one. It's a great book. Eckhart Tolle is amazing. But again, that also I think has to do with the timing of the book. I think if I read it for the first time now, I would think it was great, but I don't know if it would be my top. But because that was my entry point to personal growth when I was like 19, I had never really like heard about any of this. I was not into personal development or self-help. I thought it was like stupid. And which is funny now because I'm like obsessed with personal development and personal growth. So that's why that book was so powerful. It was just the perfect book at the perfect time. And I got it as a gift from someone. Somebody's mom was like, "Hey, I just read this and I thought you'd like it." She gave me her copy and I opened it and I was like, "Nope." And I closed it. And then I came back to it later and that was the right time. And it was just, I feel like I experienced being present for the first time. Like it was such a huge breakthrough for me to get a glimpse of this other way of living and experiencing life. And so that is why The Power of Now is always on my list. And then The Surrender Experiment, which I know you started, it's an interesting one. So Michael Singer, who wrote that book, also wrote The Untethered Soul. And I read The Untethered Soul quite a few years ago, maybe in 2017, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. And I was hesitant to go back to him, but Surrender Experiment came very highly recommended. And it was just the perfect time to be listening to it. And as someone who's such a driver and high achiever, I really don't need more books telling me how to like be a driver. I need the opposite, right? Because like I have that part down, but the surrender and that aspect is really where I have room for growth. And I know that. And so in that way, it was perfect. I really liked his writing. I really liked his storytelling. And then as an entrepreneur, once you get into the book enough, he ends up founding this incredibly successful, gigantic tech company and then selling it like millions and millions and millions of dollars. And so from that perspective, as an entrepreneur, I found it fascinating too. So for those two reasons, I thought that was just like such an engrossing read. And it's such a good reminder when I find myself trying to control external circumstances or saying like, no, this isn't supposed to be happening, to remind myself to surrender, because he tells the story so well of how he did that. And the places that it led him were just so incredible.
Yeah, I may need to go back and finish it. I think I read about half of it. I'm at the part where he leaves to go away to teach, I think. And so I need to go back, because it is an interesting read. His storytelling is good. It just kind of was one of those books I wasn't, excited to get back to.
Mhm.
Sometimes there are books that I'm excited to get back to. I really want to read them. I want to finish them. There are some books that I refer back to over and over again, but that one just didn't, it grabbed me, but it didn't grab me. And so it's interesting. I'm curious though, when you read The Power of Now, did you read The Power of Now before or after your dad passed away?
Before, by a lot. Because I was probably like, when I fully read it, I was like 19 or 20, and my dad died when I was 26. So it started me on this like personal development journey. And thank God, like if I hadn't done that work and done that learning, I don't know how I would have responded to a tragedy of that size, but I'm going to
Mhm.
guess it would have been pretty negative and unhealthy.
Yeah. Yeah. For those of you listening, Margy has a podcast called We Get It, Your Dad Died. And she uses her own experience of losing her dad to suicide to transform the conversation around grief and show the transformation that is possible on the other side of loss. Her show won first prize in the best podcast category of the 2021 Rhode Island International Film Fest. So I highly recommend you listen to her podcast. She's got some really, really great conversations with other people about loss on that podcast as well. The reason I asked you that is because I read The Power of Now literally 2 days after my first adult owned dog died.
Oh,
And it was such I read it on a plane. I was flying to Dallas to an event literally 2 days after my dog died. We had to put our dog down. So it was even harder because we had to make the decision to do that. If you've ever had to do that, you second guess whether or not you waited too long. You shouldn't have done it when you did. And it comes with its whole host of questions. And I was a wreck. I have told people that when Pal, he was a Jack Russell, died, I felt like that day I cried for everything that had ever hurt me before in my life. And when I was on the plane flying to Dallas, I had this book and I started reading The Power of Now. And it honestly, it was like it put me upright. It helped me get off the floor of being so immersed in my grief and the cycle of grief to having perspective in the present moment that I will probably never forget how powerful that book was for me at that time. That's why I asked you when you read it.
oh, that's so beautiful. And I think it's one of those books where I think a lot of people remember the first time they read it. It's just, it's an incredible book. And that's an incredible time for you to have read it. I think it's so life-changing that I'll just like, sometimes I'll just order like 7 copies and then I'll take them out and put them in little free libraries around my neighborhood and like write little notes to people. Like, I hope you love this book as much as I do. And so I've got all these Power of Now books out there and I don't know who took them. I always check and they're always gone right away. And so I'm always thinking like, I hope these people are having this like incredible transformation too.
What a sweet thing to do, to buy books like that and just give them away because you want to make a difference in somebody else's life. I love that. I love that you do that.
Mhm.
So talk to me a little bit about other ways that you've been learning, because you've been doing a lot of learning lately too. And I'm going to botch the words, but in terms of learning about emotional regulation, is that the right
Yes.
words, wrong words?
So I've become through
I think you
reading,
become a TikTok star. Have you not? Did I read that somewhere?
I've been growing my TikTok following steadily. I think I'm at like 40K followers right now, which for me is a lot. Like compared to an actual influencer, it's not, but for me, it's a lot. And yeah, I've become really and it's interesting because it's been through this journey of agility and through growing my leadership through Scrum and agility and through some other like leadership books. And I've become really obsessed with this intersection between leadership and the nervous system, because so much of what we do as leaders and our effectiveness has to do with our ability to stay regulated, even through unpredictable things and through change, and to create a container for our teams where we're regulated. So we're not causing chaos and they're able to regulate. And then also helping them understand their own nervous systems, because when you have a fast growing entrepreneurial company, it is not for the faint of heart, right? Like change is inherently threatening to the brain. And it's nothing but change, right? All the time. And so how do you lead people through that in a way that's not causing burnout and causing exhaustion and causing people to leave, but in a way that, yes, it's intense and yes, there's change, but we're all growing and evolving and enjoying it together. So through that rabbit hole, I became even more fascinated with neurosomatic work. And I had been doing neurosomatic work myself for a while and learning to regulate my nervous system, learning neuro drills, learning those tools. And going for walks is a really great way to regulate your nervous system, by the way.
That's why I
Starting
do
your
it.
day with a walk is huge as a leader. And so I then got certified in neurosomatic intelligence so that I could use neurosomatic tools with my coaching clients and also with my team, because I think most coaches can relate to sometimes you sort of get to the end of the line and what you can do with strategy or mindset work, and people are just stuck on these old things that they have going on. And even if they want to overcome them and they're saying they're going to and they're doing the work, they will just self-sabotage or get stuck. And I found it so powerful to bring the neurosomatic piece in so that it's not just mindset and I want to do this and I'm going to do this. But if you say that and you get a no from your body and your brain, you're probably not going to do that. And so getting the body, the brain, and the intentions aligned has been really powerful for me personally and for my clients and now for my team. And so that's kind of where I've been hanging out. There are people who are much, much more experts in neurology than I am, like in a big way. My interest in neurosomatics is more in how it relates to high performance coaching.
Hmm. Can you give us an example? Like, can you give us an example of how it works and like, how somebody, like, I guess I'm looking for an example that that our listeners could relate to in terms of when this happens to you, this is an example of how neurosomatic work could help.
Sure. So for your listeners who are probably high achievers, there's a lot in high achieving, and there's a lot of reasons that people become high achievers. And some of those can have to do with kind of old trauma responses of feeling the need to be perfect, feeling afraid to stop, like you have to just keep going, which can actually be a flight response. And so one thing that I've seen in high achievers, and myself included, is that your brain is smart. Like it knows that you can only handle a certain amount of stress long-term before it will turn into disease. And so your brain and body will sabotage you if you don't know how to lower your stress and get regulated. So an example is if you're just going and going and going and launching and you're not actually resting, like maybe you're stopping and you're watching TV, but you're never actually bringing yourself to true rest, your body will find a way to stop you. And for a lot of people, that looks like migraines. That looks like, right? Because it's like, if you get a migraine, you're going to stop what you're doing, you're going to turn off the lights and you're going to lie down. And that's like because your brain wants you to rest. So I've seen that, like outputs like that people don't want. And it can be like binge eating, scrolling, all types of things that people do as neuro outputs, because the nervous system is so overloaded by all this fast paced, high achieving sprinting. And if you don't find ways to relieve that, and it could be doing neuro drills, it could be going for a walk every day. But if you don't find what works for you, you will burn out. And I do think that's why a lot of entrepreneurs either get sick or they quit. They just can't take it anymore.
Mm-hmm. So my final question as we wrap up, because I think I've kept you a few minutes over, is do you have a book that you would recommend on understanding neurosomatics?
That's a great question. Honestly, I really don't. I've
Right.
learned I've learned what I've learned through like getting certified as a neurosomatic coach. I know there are books, although I haven't seen enough about this intersection of leadership and the nervous system, which maybe means I need to write it.
Yeah, maybe you do. Maybe that's a great idea for you to do. I like that. Because, you know, when you love to read, at some point, you need to put pen to paper and put your name on the cover of a book,
Yes.
which, you know, I have done. And, you know, it's an interesting time with that book, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. I will share more about that another time.
Okay.
Yes. Anyways, Margy, thank you so much for being here. It is always a pleasure to have these conversations with you. Every time you and I get to do this, it brings a lot of joy into my heart. I really look up to you and respect you and love your zest for learning and how you are able to articulate and convey your learning to others. So thank you so much for being a guest on our show.
Oh, I feel the same way about you. Thank you so much.
And if you're listening and you're thinking, wow, I want a really great book like Margy found in Scrum, you should probably join Thought Readers, thoughtreaders.com. It's free in 2023. So go check it out because maybe there's a book there that can change your life. Thank you for listening. And we will see you on the next show.